Welcome to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show, where we make financial freedom and work-life harmony a reality through smart real estate investing strategies. I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough. I am your host for today, and we're diving into a topic that has transformed the way a lot of members in our community are investing, and that is called 1031 exchanges. Our guest, David Foster, is a qualified intermediary and the founder of the 1031 Investor and an author of Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth. Would love for you to give us the subheading of that as well, Dave. Now, he's got over 25 years of experience. Dave is here to break it down for us guys, to show us how we can leverage this particular strategy to defer our taxes. We can grow wealth and keep more of that hard-earned moolah. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. Rachel, I appreciate you having me.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
You know, it's funny. This is one of the most hoodoo singing parts of the tax code that there ever has been. And people are so scared of it or they don't know about it. But it's actually been around since 1920. So it's nothing new, but you're right. It's exactly the opportunity to keep those tax dollars working for you instead of for the IRS.
Okay, so you're already jumping into it, which I absolutely love. So what exactly is a 1031 exchange?
In the old days, if you would have asked me that question, I would have said, well, I can tell you, but then I'll have to kill you. Because it was really this deep, dark secret. The 1031 exchange is very simply the opportunity that the tax code gives you to sell a piece of investment property, buy another piece of investment property or pieces of investment property, and as long as you fall within the timelines, as long as you purchase at least as much as you sell, you get to indefinitely defer paying the tax that normally you would have. Or, even more importantly, you get to indefinitely defer recapturing the depreciation that has been taken on a piece of property. Instead, all of that money goes to purchasing your new real estate, which you get the benefit of, both in appreciation and cash flow and more depreciation. So it's really a win-win-win, but the IRS, who has to let us do it, is certainly not going to advertise it, right? So it's left up to people like us to talk about it and help guide people through.
Okay, I love that. And like I said, we're already diving in. So I want to break it down a little bit further and ask you this question, Dave. So for those who might not know, why is deferring taxes through 1031 exchange such a powerful tool? Maybe we even need to define what is deferring taxes, like what's in it for me, what does it really mean? Our community are super intelligent medical professionals, but the tax code, once we get over to that side, it's like gibberish. So what is deferring taxes, and why is this such a powerful tool?
Oh, two words: compound interest. That's what it is right there. And by the way, Rachel, do you know who coined that? Who said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world? Can you guess?
No, who said that?
Albert Einstein.
I thought so. Okay. Okay. So you're taking us back into an
Yeah,
area that we're so familiar with, the science of
absolutely.
it all.
And what
Yes.
he said following that comment was even more appropriate because he said, those who understand it will benefit from it. Those who don't will pay for it. So whether it is the interest that you're paying on credit cards, that you have to borrow money to then pay that credit card off, that compounding of the negative interest, or whether like in our case, it's the compounding interest while you get to use the money. So let's take an example. Let's say that you and I each sell a property for $300,000 and there's $100,000 in profit for each of us. Now we're going to do the exact same thing. and our properties are going to appreciate the same rate, everything. I'm going to do a 1031 exchange. So instead of paying $20,000 in tax, I use all of that to go buy new real estate. So if I had $100,000, but I don't pay tax, I still have $100,000, don't I? So I can put that as a 20% down payment on a $500,000 property. Now, I still owe the $20,000 in tax, but as long as I own that new property, I never have to pay it.
So
And there
that
are ways to defer that forever. We can talk about those in a little bit.
I look
You,
forward to
on the
that.
other hand,
So
are a
I
good
wanted
little
to
citizen.
ask what
Yeah, go
what
ahead.
what that is called the capital gains, right? The
That is
20%.
correct.
Okay.
Capital gains, depreciation, recapture, whatever terminology it is, whatever tax is associated with that sale. Now, you're a good little citizen, so you're going to pay the tax because you think our country needs hospitals and highways and everything else. So let's say your tax was 20% like a capital gains rate. Well, you pay that. Well, that only leaves you with $80,000, doesn't it? Because you paid the tax. So as a 20% down payment, you can only buy a property worth 400,000. I bought a property for 500,000. Now, we show this example in our classes where in four more transactions, at four total transactions, at 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, because I'm buying more property every time. And because that property, even though it's appreciating the same, because I bought more, it's more appreciation in total. That in those four transactions, at the end of that, where everything else is the same, I own $11.5 million of real estate. You own 4.5. Now, nobody is crying for you, right? You've done pretty well. But who would you rather be? That's compound interest. And that's what the 1031 allows you to do. Take that tax, use it as additional purchasing power. So you're actually using the government's dollars to buy more cash flow, to buy more appreciation, to buy more tax write off depreciation.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so this is so good. And thank you for that example because that paints the picture of a 3x multiple essentially from one deal versus the other, nearly 3x, which I think is a game changer. One thing that you mentioned that I don't want it to escape anyone, and I believe that there is some confusion between an asset that we own as an investment or a primary home asset. This is strictly for investment properties. Let us know. Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah, because there's some pretty cool things here, too. You're absolutely right. Your primary residence falls under Section 121. And basically, it in my mind is even better than a 1031. It's the opportunity that you get anytime you lived in a property and owned it for at least 2 out of the 5 years prior to selling it. You can sell that property and take, if you're married, the first $500,000 of profit, not of sale, of profit tax free. No need to reinvest it. You don't pay tax on it. It goes into your pocket. Do you know how often you can do that, Rachel? Once every 2 years. So NART, the National Association of Realtors, tells us in general people will move 8 to 10 times. That means that you're allowed by the government 10 opportunities in your life to do nothing more than buy a property, live in it, and then sell it. And all of that profit is tax free. It's crazy, isn't it? The 1031 is investment property only, and you're deferring the tax. So it's not quite as well. But if you'll remind me, jot yourself a note, and let's talk at the end of this how these two can come together.
So primary, the marriage of the primary plus the investment property. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so
It'll be
we'll
a great way
revisit
to
that.
come to talk with the enemies.
We need the tea. We need all the tea. So I just jotted it down and make
That's
sure
right.
that we don't.
If we said it
Yes.
now, they just shut down on us and go away.
No, this is good. This is so good. Okay, so we talked about the type of asset class investment property versus primary ownership property. Let's talk about the actual structural asset class. Is this for specific types of properties? Is it single family homes? Is it duplexes, multifamily? I know these are some of the questions that are probably swimming around in the back of our listeners' head. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, Dave? Paint us a picture of
Yeah,
what type of assets are we talking about here?
it's actually an incredibly broad picture because the way the statute reads, it's any property that is you intended to hold for productive use in business, trade, or investment can be sold in exchange for any other piece of real estate or pieces of real estate that you also intend to hold for productive use in business, trade, or for investment. And what that means is business, as in maybe it is for a medical practitioner. They own the building that they're doing day surgery in. That's an investment property. It's used in their business. Or the building that you have your restaurant in. Trade is the actual use of the real estate to make money. Rentals, vacation rentals, single family rentals, commercial properties, all of that. Using it for investment has a little nuance to it. It's property that you buy not for what it's worth right now, but because it's going to be worth more in the future. So you're buying it to hold it for appreciation. Now that's different than someone who's driving along and says, oh, I could sell that property to this other person tomorrow for more money. It's worth more. I'm not buying that property to hold it. I'm buying it to resell it. Or the fix and flipper who buys a piece of property to fix it and sell it. They're not buying it to hold and rent. Those cannot be done with 1031 exchanges. But if your intent was to hold it and something causes you to change that intent, then that's where the 1031 exchange will work for you. And it can be any type of investment property, anywhere in the country, exchanged for any other type of investment property, anywhere in the country.
Okay, so this is great. You're sharing with us some of the eligibility criteria with the fact that it's a buy and hold type of strategy. Is there anything else that we need to know or our listeners should know about eligibility for taking advantage of a 1031 exchange? What other I guess transactions would qualify for a 1031 exchange?
Well, yeah, transactions in terms of like type.
Yeah, or transactions or anything else for
Yeah.
eligibility to make sure that
So,
they're thinking of it the right way.
got it. Real estate is defined very broadly by the IRS, and it actually leans heavily on state interpretations. So there can be some quirky things that are considered to be real estate. For
Okay.
instance, oil and gas are real estate.
Say it again.
Oil and gas. So you could sell a condo in Cincinnati and buy an oil well in Texas. Yeah, I know, right? Now, where that
Okay.
starts to come into play is when people they want to. There's two things you can do. You can play the inequity market aspect. If oil is low and your real estate is high, you can sell that in 1031 exchange into a lot of oil or natural gas resources and let them ride up high. And then when they're high and real estate is low, you sell those in 1031 back into real estate. So
Mm.
there's the opportunity to arbitrage the inequities
Arbitrages of
in
sorts,
the
right?
market.
Due to
Yeah.
market inefficiencies. Interesting.
Here in Florida
Interesting.
and South Carolina, boat docks can be considered real estate. I actually helped a client do a 1031 exchange early in the 2000s, and he bought as his replacement property a boat slip. And that was considered real estate because it had been condominiumized, and it was investment real estate because I rented it from him. So billboards, we're doing some exchanges right now for people who own interest in billboards. The other thing that all of these have in common is that they are fairly passive types of investing. And so when people are wanting to transition from active into passive, going into oil interests, billboards, things like that can all be very helpful. So that's part of the type of transaction. To go back though on the difference between, say, a fix and flipper and a buy and holder, it's not about the actual time. Because I do get that question from every single person. How long do I have to hold that property? The answer is there is no statutory holding period. Now, the defining criteria is, can you demonstrate that it was your intent to hold that property for productive use, and then something caused it to change your intent? So things like, let's say you had a property, you intended to hold it and rent it, but somebody came along and said, oh, I love that house. Would you sell it to me? Well, your intent was to hold it, but that's an unsolicited offer. So in that case, the 1031 exchange would be very appropriate. So you've really got to dance around that word intent to see whether you think you could demonstrate that. And that's what makes the difference between a fix and flipper and a buy and holder.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Okay, so our audience are busy, burnt out medical professionals, whether they're physicians, pharmacists, dentists, et cetera, looking to reduce their tax burden. Okay, so their ears are perking up and they're wondering, well, how can this 1031 exchange benefit someone in my position? What say you, Dave?
If they're looking to, certainly simply deferring the tax by itself is going to be reducing their tax burden as they buy and sell real estate. Um, Actually, let me back up. Let's take this into 3 or 4 different levels. So the very first level, we've already talked about your primary residence. As you are moving up in your practice, you're probably buying larger and larger houses to live in. Maybe you're able to buy a house in residency, but then you also move to a different place to start your practice. At every opportunity there, take advantage of the 121 exemption. That money is tax-free. You benefited yourself tax-wise right there. The second level under that would be the 1031 exchange, because as you are buying and selling investment real estate, you're not going to have to pay the tax on any of that gain or any of the depreciation you've taken. That itself is another level of tax you're avoiding. Let's go one more step. And you and I talked about this right before the show started. And that is that one of the greatest benefits of real estate ownership is the ability to take depreciation. Now, I call depreciation the make-believe game the IRS plays with you, because they allow you to pretend that your property is losing value every year you own it. And because it's, quotes, losing value, you get to write that off as a loss on your tax return. Now that's kind of cool, right? That means you're offsetting W-2 income or 1099 income. The problem is, what they don't tell you is that when you sell a piece of real estate, the IRS makes you pay that back. So it's not a tax write-off forever, unless you do a 1031 exchange.
Boom.
And that lets you defer it. So that's the answer to that. But even also beyond that, there are some pretty severe limitations on income levels that you can have and how much depreciation you can take from what are called passive activities. Passive activities are simply buying rental real estate, investing in syndications, things like that. But what did Rachel and Dave talk about as being a non-passive investment that you can make in real estate? Vacation rentals. And I know you've got a lot of people in it because you've not only read my book, you've read the book, and you know exactly how this works. Vacation rentals can be an active investing opportunity. So you can take advantage of the full depreciation that you have the opportunity to write off. So by owning vacation rentals as a medical professional, you're not nearly so worried about your income levels because those vacation rentals are going to give you the opportunity to write all of that depreciation off, including what type of depreciation, Rachel? Cost segregations, right? You've talked to your clients about
Bonus
those. I
depreciation.
know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because if you're in a situation right now, it's like, oh my gosh, my practice is booming. I've got a huge tax bill. You can buy a vacation rental. You could do a cost segregation study, which would probably give you 70 or 80% plus the bonus depreciation. And if you bought it for $1 million, you could conceivably write off $700,000 or $800,000 of depreciation in that year. What a way to offset W-2 income. But you have to be an active investor, and that's why the vacation rental is a great way to go.
Yeah, it's a game changer for sure. So what would you say are some of the most common mistakes you've seen investors make when attempting a 1031 exchange?
So the first thing that happens is they don't calculate their real exposure. And
Mm.
they'll call all the time and say, well, I'm only making $50,000. I've only owned this property for a year. That's really not worth it. But they forget that they've done a cost segregation study on it. So if they sell, that's all going to have to be repaid. So they are negating all of the benefit of writing that off. So the 1031 exchange is worthwhile in a lot more opportunities than you think. So you've got to understand what your exposure is. The second, probably most common mistake is not being focused on your search, where you're looking, what you want to buy, because there's a couple of pretty serious timelines. You only have 45 days from the date of your sale to identify your potential replacement property, and you have 180 days to complete the process. So if you're not focused, those can kind of jump up and bite
So I want to
you. And
circle back to the very
yeah,
first mistake that you mentioned because I think there are a few folks that are sitting in the back. If you're sitting back, come back to me if you're multitasking. Break down and paint the picture of that first mistake for us one more time, Dave. I don't want anyone to miss this.
uh, in 2008, we had people that lost a bunch of money in real estate, right? So they had a property that they had purchased, it had appreciated, and now they were going to sell it for $100,000 less than what they owed on it. They were going to have to bring money to the table. So they would say, well, I'm taking a loss on that. I don't have to do a 1031. But because they had owned it for so long, and because they had been depreciating it, and they had refinanced it, that refinance doesn't reduce your gain. So your gain is determined by your basis subtracted from how much you sell it for. So say they sold the property for, they bought it for 600,000, they sold it for 500. And they said, well, I lost $100,000, I don't have to pay tax. But because they had taken bonus depreciation, because they had owned it for a long time, because they had refinanced it, their basis in that property was only $100,000. So when they sold it for 500,000 with a basis of 100,000, they
That's
had a $400,000
400,000.
gain that they had to pay probably 25% on.
Whoa.
That's a $100,000 mistake.
It's a huge one.
So you gotta know what your tax bill is going to be.
Wow. And so the answer to avoid that particular pitfall is to hold it for longer. Like, how do you avoid something like that? And
Yeah,
thank God we're not in 2008 and we're
well,
not.
thank heavens, yes. It's tough. There's really two answers. The first one is
Okay.
the fun one, and you're absolutely right. You simply hold on to the property.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you this, every investor I had that did not have to sell a property during that time are multi millionaires many times over.
Mm-hmm.
Because it
Yes.
comes back, it always
It's a
does.
cycle. Yeah.
It's right. So if you can avoid having to sell, that's the answer. Those who had to sell, many of them actually, the answer was to do a 1031 exchange, but they would have to bring $100,000 to the table in order to do it. So,
But it's better than losing 400K.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Wow, guys, goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Thank you for sharing that. That is such a cautionary tale. Okay, so you dove into the second biggest pitfalls is not being focused and not being mindful of the timeline. Let's break that one down. For those sitting in the back, one more time, let's break that one down because I don't want anyone to find themselves trapped in this pitfall when we have the experts sitting in the room with us. So let's talk about it, Dave.
Yeah, planning is key with
Yep.
anything, right? Whatever your venture is, the more you can plan ahead of time, the better you are, better off you are. I'll have clients that will call me the day before a 1031 exchange and say, I want to do a 1031. Okay, I'm closing tomorrow. Okay, you have 45 days now to find your replacement property. Have you started looking? No, I just found out about this. Well, okay, what are you thinking to buy? Well, I don't know. I mean, I like commercial property, but single family rentals are good. I don't know about lending. I'm like, oh goodness, this is trouble. Where do you want to buy? Well, I live in San Diego and I like to buy close to me, but man, there's commercial property in New York that's great. And Florida doesn't have taxes. Those are the people who are doomed to fail. Because at the end of day 45, you have to have your list in place of probably three properties that one of which you're going to buy. And if you are that unfocused, what do you think the chances are that you're going to be able to settle in on a location and a type, and you're going to have boots on the ground that can vet them for you? Those are the people whose exchanges fail. The people who call me 3 or 4 months ahead of time and say, I heard about this, tell me how it works. And we walk them through the 1031 exchange, and they say, what do I need to do now, Dave? First of all, figure out what your tax exposure is going to be. Secondly, figure out before you close your sale where and what you want to invest in. Focus in on that area. Third, get your team together. Your realtors, your title company, your attorney, your real estate coach, your 1031 intermediary. And all of those people have to be in place because we're all going to be working together for you. Now, that person is going to come back to me and say, Dave, I just got a contract for my property. We're closing in 30 days. That's awesome. Where are you thinking to invest? I've decided I'm going to look at a vacation rental near Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Awesome. Do you have realtors you're working with? Yes, I do. Beautiful. Have them call me if they have any questions. Who's your title company? Here they are. We then reach out to the title company. And so a month before their sale happens, they're in place with everything they need. As a matter of fact, one bonus that people don't necessarily know about is that you can actually be under contract for your new property before your old property closes. Talk about mitigating risk, right? You just have to close the sale of your old property before you take title to the new property. So those people who are able to plan ahead like that, 97, 98% of them will succeed.
This is so good, Dave. Thank you for sharing that. So, guys, the role that Dave and his team play is what's called a qualified intermediary. They're the experts. They're there to make sure that this process goes as smoothly as possible. They're in the trenches, the ins and outs of the rules and how to make this happen. And one of the key aspects that you mentioned to us, Dave, was that timing, right? Timing is everything. The earlier you can start to plan this out, the more enhanced your positioning would be, for lack of a better word. So I do appreciate that your team being here to make things run smoother is very, very important. And I want the audience and the listeners to know that you don't just wake up, you have a property under contract, you go to the closing table, now you take possession of your capital gains, and now you're calling Dave and his team. That's what you don't do. You
Well, no,
do not
because
do
at that
that.
point
It's
in
too
time,
late, right, Dave?
all I can do is just cry with you because the QI is required by the IRS and we have to be in place as part of the closing of the sale because you cannot touch the proceeds and we have to be mentioned on the settlement statement. So if you've already closed, better luck next time.
There's someone right now listening and they're about to close. So I wanted to make sure I said it out loud. Listen, find a qualified intermediary. Dave and his team, they do such great work. And they're really, for the knowledge and what the support they provide you, I find them to be really cost effective. So have that in place, mitigate your risk, avoid these pitfalls. I'm so excited that you said the earlier the better. I never thought that, oh, you can potentially have a property under contract prior to even closing
Yeah.
on yours, as
Well, and you know what? I bet you haven't even thought about this
tell me.
because we just don't. We're not geared. We always think
No.
sale, purchase, sale, purchase.
Yeah.
Every day that you can take title to your new property earlier is a day you are getting the cash flow. So if you sell your property, you drag out your surge, you take your time and then you close, you could lose 3 months of cash flow. If you're already under contract for your purchase and you close your sale and a week later you close your purchase, the cash flow starts again. It's those little things. It's why the big banks in our country love to hold on to $2 in fees from an ATM machine because that $2 multiplies over time, doesn't it? And over amount. And it's those little decisions you make that give you a week or two or a month of added benefit. And it adds up over the years.
So good. Now, I have in my notes here to ask you about that primary residence plus investment property tool or little hack. Would you mind sharing that now with us?
Absolutely. And I'm going to couch it this way because we're going to review just real quickly while we're doing this. The 1031 exchange of what I call the 4Ds, the pillars of the 1031 exchange. And the first one, they all start with the letter D, is defer. And it's because of what we talked about at the very beginning. Why is this thing so important? Because the deferral of that tax is gives you the impact of compounding interest, whether it's 2 years or 20 years. You want to start and keep deferring that tax as much as you can. Because anytime you sell into a 1031, you get to use the benefit of the tax. Anytime you later sell that property and do another 1031 exchange, you continue to defer it. So, but you got to start. The second D is also defer, and it's because of what we talked about that the 1031 exchange allows you to go from any type of real estate to any other type of real estate. So you may decide you no longer want to be in single families. You want to go to vacation rentals or commercial or industrial or oil and gas, anywhere in the country. The 1031 exchange allows you to do that. So you could sell your property if you love appreciation. that's maybe in a market where, like a lot of our investors in 2015, who sold properties in San Francisco because things were topping out a little bit, and they went and they bought dirt cheap properties in this sleepy little town called Austin, Texas. They followed Elon. And what happened? They then got all of that appreciation because they were able to 1031 exchange. The third D of the 1031 exchange is that not only does it let you react to wherever the market is at, it lets you react to wherever you're at in your personal life cycle. And this is where we get into the confluence of 121 because it's perfectly fine at any point in time to convert a property from from the investment into your primary residence. So let's say you're getting close to retiring. Before you decide you want to retire in Florida, you're living in Kansas City. So when it's time to retire, before that, you've positioned your portfolio in Sarasota, Florida. As you walk out the door to retire, you sell your house in Kansas City. The first $500,000 in profit, tax free. Put that in your pocket and then move into one of your former investment properties. As long as you own that, you'll never pay the tax bill. And if you live in it, if you've owned it for 5 years and you've lived in it for at least 2 out of the 5, you also get to take a proration of the gain tax free. So I had a client who did a 1031 exchange into 3 identical beachfront condos in St. Pete Beach. He rented the first one for 2 years. Then he moved into it, converted it into his primary. He lived in it for 3 years, and then he sold it. Had he owned it for 5 years? Yeah. Had he lived in it for at least 2 out of the previous 5? Yeah, he lived in it for 3. So he got 60% or 3/5 of the gain converted to tax free. He paid tax on 40% and he paid depreciation recapture. But more importantly, where did he move?
until
External.
until the next rental that he purchased before. Oh
Because
my
there's no
gosh.
limit on this. So what was his retirement plan? He said, Dave, if I had to work at Publix, I'd get a W-2. If I had to deliver pizzas, I'd get a 1099. I'm getting paid and I pay a little bit of tax. But my job is I take my coffee out to the back deck and look at the ocean. That's his retirement plan. So that's the conversion from investment into primary residence. But check this out. You can also go the other direction. And your clients are going to be prime candidates because generally, if you stay in a place long enough, if you buy a big enough property, you'll find that you want to sell it, but you've got $1 million in gain. Well, you're only going to get the first 500,000 tax free. So what are you going to do? Move out and convert that property into an investment property for a year. It's probably a really nice property. Make it a short-term corporate rental or rent it to family and friends. Use it for corporate events for your business. Whatever you want to do that turns it into an investment property. Now, where are you going to go live? I don't know, maybe go convert one of your short-term rentals into your next primary. But your old primary is now investment. And once you've used it for investment for, I'd recommend a year, then you sell it. Now, because you're selling an investment property, you could do a 1031 exchange on it. But wait, haven't you also lived in it for 2 out of the previous 5 years? Yeah, you sure have. So the first $500,000 of profit is still tax free. and you use the 1031 exchange to defer the rest of the tax and the depreciation recapture. And you can do that unlimited times as well.
Wow.
It's a pretty powerful statute. Oh, by the way, though, what's the last D, Dave?
Yes. What is the what was
What do
that
you
third
think
D?
it
I've
is?
got defer, defer. What was the third D? Was it
Defer.
defer again? The last D. Is it defer? Pray tell, is it defer?
You would think that would be a great answer, but it's actually die.
Oh man.
And it's huge. This is huge. It's not what you and I would choose, but it's all coming, right?
Right, right.
When
It's
you
coming. It's
die,
coming.
your real estate goes to your heirs at what is called a stepped up basis. In other words, they inherit it as if they paid market value for it. All of that deferred tax over the years, all of that depreciation over the years, you don't pay it, your estate doesn't pay it, your heirs don't pay it. Tax free. So the people who say, and I get them every month, but Dave, I got to pay the tax someday, don't I? My answer is no, you don't. You can defer, defer, defer,
Till you
and die.
die.
And you'll never pay the tax, and no one else will.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Dave, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for explaining that whole life cycle. Guys, listen to this again and again and again. Send it to your friends, send it to your enemies, send it to your parents, send it to all the people. This has been such an amazing session. So thank you so much for sharing. Guys, definitely check out Dave's book, Lifetime Tax Free Wealth, The Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange. Dave, any final words for the people?
Well, you wanted the rest of that book title, which what I've put in that book is not only the how-tos. If all I did was that, it'd be really boring. And it may still be boring. I don't know. My kids even say don't sound bad. But
Oh, okay.
I know that's high praise, right?
That is.
As I started to write, I realized I've got the best source of examples from 25 years of actual clients. So we've used tons of actual case studies to show you how this person did it this way. Your goals are this. Oh, this person did it that way. It's Lifetime Tax-Free Wealth, the Real Estate Investor's Guide to the 1031 Exchange. You can find it on Amazon and everywhere else. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And is that the best way for the community to connect with you? Do you have a link that we can add to our show notes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website's very easy, the1031investor.com. And if you go there, it will link you to our YouTube channel. We've got like 65 videos that are on all of these same kinds of topics. And trust me, because I am a golden retriever with memory loss. I don't do anything that's long. These are 2 and 3 minute videos that will answer your question and let you get back on the field doing what you want to do. So the1031investor.com. There's also calculators. There's a link to set up appointments to speak with us. Yeah, it's all right there.
Awesome. Dave, oh my gosh, this was a wealth of information. Thank you so much for sharing those invaluable insights on 1031 exchanges and how it could be a huge game changer for growing wealth while keeping more of what we work so hard to earn. So, for our listeners, remember that the key to financial freedom isn't just earning more, it's keeping more of what you make, getting your money to work a little bit harder than you, working smarter, not harder. And if you found this,
Yes.
right?
Can I tell you what a mentor of mine once said?
Yeah.
The mantra that we've all lived with, right, in real estate is you make money when you buy. Because everybody thinks I get the best price. If I get the best price, I'm guaranteeing my profit. He said, but Dave, the wealthiest people aren't those that made the most money. The wealthiest people are those who kept the most money from their transactions.
Isn't that the truth? That is the truth. There, mic drop, my friends. So if you found today's episode to be helpful, be sure to subscribe to Luxury Rental Doctor Show, where you will never miss another episode or action-filled strategy again. Also, if you're ready to take the next step, be sure to follow the links that we're dropping in the show notes. Dave's got a bunch of resources that you can tap into. Until next time, my friend, remember that financial freedom and a balanced life are not just dreams. They are goals that you can achieve in this good year of 2025 with the right tools, with the right strategies, and a supportive community. Take care, stay inspired, and keep building the life that you deserve. See you next time on the next episode. Bye-bye for now.